Well, hello and welcome. So glad you're here. In today's video, I want to talk about how to be your authentic self. I so often hear clients say, I just want to speak authentically. I want to speak my true voice. Or I just want to be authentic in relationships and really, you know, come from my natural uh, truth, what I believe in. And you might ask yourself, well, how do I be authentic? Or where is this authentic self? Well, the good news is that our authentic self is right here. It's within us. But it's also who we are in relationship with others. And it's something that's always in progress. It's kind of always evolving. So what our job is to learn to acknowledge, listen, become aware of how it feels when we're being our authentic selves versus when we're behaving and speaking from the expectations of others, from people or from the culture around us. So in the next little part of this video, I just want to share with you 4 tips that you can use to start to build that authentic self and to live out of that authentic self. So tip number 1 is to establish your core values. And I always find this interesting. And this is just perhaps Googling core values, if you'd like. And you can take tests. You can take free ones or pay for more elaborate ones. But what these tests will do is they'll give you a list of values that you can choose from. And you can figure out for yourself what's really important to you. What values, what basic premises is it important for you to live out of? So some examples could be honesty, family, hard work, speaking your truth, walking your talk. So what these are like foundations. This is the ground on which you can stand on and give you the background of what's important to you and therefore who you are at any moment. Is who you're being fulfilling these core values that you really hold true for yourself. So for me, as an example, at some point in my life, I decided and discovered really that speaking honestly, both to others and to myself, was something that was really, really important to me. I wanted my word to have value. I wanted to believe it, my words to myself, and I wanted other people to know that what I said they could count on or they could believe in. So that became something I became very aware of. So core values, this is something that we want to know as a foundation for who we are, who our authentic self is. Okay, so tip 2, given that we know what our core values are, and again, core values can change as we learn from people what we want to add to our life. We can add core values because there's certainly things that we don't even think of that may be important to us, but we really kind of never really identified. So step number 2 is really aligning your actions, your habits, your behaviors, decisions you make based on these core values. I mean, the core values gives us a measure of, are we on the right path? And again, this is where we can start to have that sense of feeling. How we're feeling when we're behaving, when we're taking action. Does it feel right? And if it feels right, if it feels okay, it's probably because we're living out of our core values. If it doesn't feel aligned, if it doesn't feel right, we might be going outside of what we feel is important or going against what's important, what we stand for. So aligning our actions is a kind of like, are you walking your talk in all areas of your life? So we have to build a listening for this, a feel for this, And it's something, it's ongoing. It's in our every moment. Are we living out of these core values? So just to continue on the story of my example was, I really wanted to walk my talk. And I always had this little small voice in the back of my mind wanting to be somebody who meditated. I had this fascination about being a person who meditated for quite some time, and I saw people who meditated as having sort of a calmness, a really sense of self, a confidence. And it was something that I was really drawn to. But I had another conversation with myself going on all the time, that I was just someone who was too fidgety, who couldn't sit still long enough to do the meditating, to sit for those long periods of time. So I finally got sick and tired of this desire to be this meditative kind of sort of person, and I said to myself, I am going to start meditating. So it was something I said to myself, and I wanted to walk my talk. I was sick and tired of who I'd been being, so I made that commitment to meditate 5 days a week, and I pushed myself. I started with like 30 seconds a day, or anything I could handle, up until, like, I'm very proud to say, my 45 minutes a day, sometimes more, so that I could establish some qualities that I found that were really valuable to me, and that was like being calm, being aware of my behavior, being someone who could not be so controlled by my thoughts. And I'm so happy that I did that I followed through with what I said I was going to do. And now I'm recognizing and enjoying the benefits in my life of having a meditation practice. So a real step 2 is, do your actions, does your speech, your behaviors, your daily habits, do they reflect the core values that are important to you? And this, again, is another step in building our authentic selves. So step 3, let's get my notes here, is an important remembering or knowing that we're not fixed. We are human beings that we're always evolving. We're meeting new people, learning new things. So we have to keep that in mind, because if we're not keeping in mind that we're people who can change all the time based out of our core values, but our behaviors, how we speak and act, can always be changing in new and different ways. And I say that because the other thing that we really have to keep in mind is that we're not stuck in limited beliefs about ourselves or limited thinking. We're not necessarily just what we've always thought we were. We can be different. So we kind of always have to be balancing that self-talk, that limiting self-talk, with the possibilities of who we could be. So we have an idea of who we might want to be with the core values, but how does that person with those core values show up differently? So another example for me was, I always had a belief that I couldn't do math, that I was terrible at numbers, math, anything to do with math, I wasn't going to go in that direction. And I made decisions career-wise in my life not to do certain careers that required the math. And I was always a little bit disappointed with myself about that. And the other thing was, real estate was something that I kind of always wanted to try. I was always a little bit curious about, but of course it, in my understanding, had a lot of math, so I just didn't want to go there. Well, in my evolving self, with my new meditation habit that I had a daily meditation practice. I was learning new ways of thinking and being. I decided, I had this time in my life that I wasn't sure what I was going to do next, and real estate was a real option. And the math thought came up. And I decided, no, I pretty much know that whatever I put my mind to, reasonably speaking, of course, I could do. So I decided to go into real estate, and I tell you, I got through that math. It was a practical application. The math had meaning. I just put those thoughts of I can't do math aside, and I did really, really well in my exams, and I became a real estate agent, and I enjoyed doing that for a few years. So in order to become, that authentic self, which is a self that is beyond our limiting beliefs, we have to always be aware of what beliefs that we're functioning out of. Are we believing things about ourselves or doing things? Do we have habits that are in alignment with our authentic self again, or are they just things we picked up when we were young, or things we think other people are thinking about us and that we're behaving out of that? So the third point being that we're not fixed, that we can change, and that our authentic self is only based out of those values. How those values show up on our life is up to us. And it's up to the challenges we want to take in order to breathe life into who we want to be. So that leads me into number 4, which is to keep in mind that everybody is in a way becoming their authentic self, whether they've consciously chose to or not, or whether you're very conscious that you want to be your authentic self. Or a better way of putting it is we all want to kind of be comfortable within ourselves, right? We want to know ourselves and be confident. I think you could say that's the same thing as becoming your authentic self, right? Feeling comfortable in who you are. And I say that because as we are putting ourselves out there to become our authentic selves, we're going to bump into areas that are uncomfortable. So it's like boundary setting. We're going to try new things, speak our truth, say no to others, say what we like, say what we don't like. And we're getting responses back from people who are themselves just people trying to figure themselves out too. I'd like to link this back to the people-pleasing element, in that we have to learn not to take things so personally, because people are really just reacting out of their own confusion of who they are. They're not really responding to us specifically. So we really have to keep that in mind, that other people are also on this figuring out path to their authentic self. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with who we are personally. So yeah, as we do this, as we realize that everybody else is on the similar path, that it gives us a little bit more strength to push ourselves into new areas, to stretch ourselves beyond what we're comfortable with, and so that we can become this confident, a person that's more open in being who we see ourselves as being, who we want to be, to have less fear, and to create a little bit more possibility for ourselves as we become our authentic selves. So in conclusion, I'd like to say that most importantly, it's about doing your best all the time, and having that background of kindness and compassion towards yourself as we learn about ourselves, as we let go of what has always stopped us, and as we move into new areas that we can realize who we actually are, and all within a foundation of what we hold as true and important for ourselves, for our values. So I'd love to know any feedback or what you take away from this video. And if you'd like to dive a little bit deeper into what being your authentic self means for you and how it looks in your life, please sign up for a free mini coaching session, and I'll leave a link below for that. And as well, if you'd like to join a Facebook group of like-minded women where we talk more about issues like this, join my Facebook group, and I'd left a link for that below as well. And as usual, until I see you next time, please take care and be kind to yourself. Bye for now.